am Margaret Kobos, and I'm the founder and CEO of Oklahoma United, which is an Oklahoma-based, nonpartisan nonprofit working to improve civic engagement and the democratic system here in Oklahoma. Voter registration, civic literacy, all kinds of issues that are uh, not where we want them to be in Oklahoma. And we have a lot of confidence in our people, and we think we can do better, and we know we want better for our state. So as you're well aware, our biggest effort over the last several years has been to push education and the idea of open primaries to Oklahoma. Although we did not invent this solution, we picked it up, from many other minds, great minds, and research. And you've been involved in some of that with the Oklahoma Academy. And we're very, very privileged to have been able to launch State Question 836, which is the constitutional amendment proposing an end to partisan closed primaries, and which we believe are contributing to the Oklahoma's worst in the U.S. voter turnout. And we feel like the people really are the answer to our issues in Oklahoma, and we want to see more people involved in the process. So our proposal would, of course, create a new primary election process in which every candidate, regardless of party registration, would face every voter on every election ballot. The top two vote getters in a primary election would go on to the general election. And that means that every voter can vote in every election, which they are already funding, and every election would be meaningful. So, of course, we're partnering with Vote Yes 836, and we're doing a lot of conversations with people like you who are experts, political experts, have grown up here, have been in the system, and we want to hear your thoughts about Oklahoma's political climate today, and what you think we can do to improve it, and how State Question 836 fits into that. So with all of that in the background, I do want to let you know that I am speaking from a public library here today. So I probably have the most unflattering fluorescent lighting on the planet, but I do have a lot of great books around me. So we love all of the, the civic literacy and engagement that we can do. So I feel pretty good being in a library. I'm a recovering English major as well. So I'm pretty at home right here in the stacks. AJ, I do want to introduce you to our audience quickly. You were a Republican state senator for Senate District 20 from 2012 to 2018. And in that time, you have held leadership roles and earned recognition for impactful work in juvenile justice and child welfare, healthcare, and criminal justice reform. We really appreciate all of your efforts and your public service. In addition to your legislative career, you have previously worked as an educator and a nonprofit executive, and all of that, I think, helps you understand civic engagement and what we might do differently in Oklahoma. And then just to note, today, you are president and CEO of the Potts Family Foundation, which is an organization dedicated to enhancing nonprofit capacity and funding to improve early child care programs in Oklahoma. And you serve on the Oklahoma Institute for Child Advocacy, the Oklahoma Academy for State Goals, and the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, and the Oklahoma Center for Nonprofits. It's really a very, very long list of everything you do. I don't know how you have time to do it all. I really don't. In addition to that, you have been helping Open Primaries and Oklahoma United as a spokesperson. You are super educated in the political world and process. So we really appreciate your your spokesmanship, your abilities to relate to people. And I really want to get into that today. So as someone who has successfully campaigned and served in office, I just want you to describe in your own words how a closed primary system has worked for you and against you, as you attempted to legislate and govern and bring good ideas to the people of Oklahoma?
Thanks, Margaret. I'm glad to be here talking to you about this subject. And it's one of my favorite things right now to talk about is how we can change the political landscape in Oklahoma. It does crack me up when you call me a political expert, because the longer I work in policy and politics, the less I realize I know. So because I learn so much every day. But my experience as a candidate, I ran first in 2012 in a special election. And I like to tell the story that I was such a novice. I'd always advocated for policy as someone who'd worked for better policy around education and mental health as a provider for my career as an educator in the nonprofit arena. And get recruited to run for office like most people, like most women who run for the first time. Someone asked me if I would consider it. And it was time to start knocking doors. And I just thought you took your little push cards out and you started knocking all the doors. And then realized pretty soon that for people who understood political campaigns, no, you don't knock all the doors. You only knock the doors of the people who are likely to vote for you. And in my situation, those were Republican primaries. I did have a general election in the first election, but I tell the story that by the end of it, I think maybe my opponent also voted for me. I got to know him so well throughout the course of the campaign. But I really thought that things were different in campaigns. I thought that you were trying to appeal to all of the people in the district. And in a Senate district that's over 75,000 people, almost 78,000 people, in a typical Oklahoma Senate district. Come to find out, of those tens of thousands, there's really only a few that are considered important in the process, because they are, in the current landscape, they're Republicans that vote in primaries. And have seen that play out over and over in subsequent elections, not just my own, but in all of the campaigns I've been involved in, someone helping other people knock doors, supporting candidates, selecting candidates. And I really do think it has a massive impact on the way people govern and the decisions they make once they are elected. They say elections have consequences. Elections have consequences towards the electorate, but also towards the candidate themselves. How you vote impacts your election. It goes both ways. And so what I saw repeatedly as I've worked as an advocate, then as an elected official, and then again as an advocate, my role today, is the impact of that very limited percentage of the electorate that matters at the end of the day for the people that we elect, impacting the results and what we see in the policy arena. I'm more of a policy, we talk about there's political hacks and policy wonks. I'm a policy wonk. I really like the policy part of the work. Politics were a means to an end for me to get things done in the policy arena. It wasn't the part of the process I enjoyed. And it right now, with our current system, it's all about the politics and very rarely about the policy that are a result of those elections.
So why don't you tell me, I just kind of want to back up a little bit. You represented Senate District 20, right? So tell me about how you came to be interested in running for office and what you thought you wanted to accomplish for the people that you represented.
I have been a student of the process as an advocate. I've always advocated for kids and policies that improve the life of children in Oklahoma. So I've been at the Capitol a lot just as an advocate. In fact, I've been in every single office in the building as a voter, showing up and saying, hey, here's how the choices you make impact my ability to serve children in the classroom or as and I've worked with kids in multiple different, I've been a foster parent, I've run a children's shelter, I've done parent intervention classes as an educator. I've kind of done it all when it comes to kids in Oklahoma. And so whenever I was asked to run, and like most women are recruited to run for office, that tends to be the way someone comes to you and asks. And I was actually asked by the Chamber of Commerce in Guthrie. I served Logan County, Noble County, Pawnee County, and Kingfisher County. So 4 counties in north central Oklahoma, and loved every single community. But the Chamber of Commerce in Guthrie came and asked me to run. And that's how a lot of candidates get interested. We have some that grow up wanting to be part of the political process. And then those of us that are just citizens that are kind of drafted by your community to go serve for a while. I never intended for it to be my career. It was, like I said, this is a means to an end. It's a way to impact policy. And so that's why I did the special election, finished out that term, and then ran for one more term, and then elected not to run again. Because I thought I could be more effective as an advocate back working for kids on the outside. But
that is a, yeah, that's,
go ahead.
Yeah, that's a really interesting segue, because I wanted to ask you about something I've heard you say in the past, and that is when you left public service, you began work in the private sector, and you attended, tell me the story, you attended some kind of meeting or conference in New York, I think, or somewhere, and you said that the things that they were concerned about were the same things. Tell us that story, because I find that really interesting.
Well, we generally think in Oklahoma that we're so much different than the other states. Well, one of the stops along my career, when I left office, I had an opportunity to work for a large corporation doing government community relations, and which it took me all across the country. And I, even as a member, have always found it fascinating to listen to people talk about politics in their state. But we tend to think we're this outlier. We're so much different. I was actually a trip to the state capitol in New York, and in the legislature here in Oklahoma, the topics of conversation were public education funding, roads and bridges at the county level, at that time, immunizations, and mandates on immunizations. So I go to the state capitol in New York, now polar opposite from Oklahoma, right? Well, on the particular day I was in their beautiful state capitol, I swear, public education, local roads and bridges, immunizations, it was the exact same topics of discussion. And it made me realize that we're a lot more like some of these other states than we care to admit. We want to think we're this outlier. The difference between states very frequently is the process that they use. Now, New York, ironically, is a closed primary system, just like what we have in Oklahoma, which may result in helps to contribute to super majorities. Now, in New York, it happens to be on the other side of the aisle, opposite of Oklahoma. But that process that we choose to elect the individuals that will represent us matters just as much as everything else. And I think I learned pretty quickly that we're not that much different than other states. And in fact, in many of the states that we try to emulate, the missing piece is actually how we do our elections.
Yeah, so we obviously have the lowest voter turnout. We've had the lowest voter turnout for a couple of election cycles. It's not where we want to be. What do you think that does in terms of being elected and being reelected as a candidate and serving your people? Just the aspect of low voter turnout itself.
You use the key phrase, right? You said serving your people. Low voter turnout means that you're serving a very few, just that small portion that actually make it to the polls in an election that impacts whether you keep your job or not. And we forget very frequently that I think who we elect as county commissioner and county assessor and county clerk is just as important as who we elect to U.S. Senate. And those elections get completely lost in the process that we have currently. And that concept of service is just so limited. You're serving the people that elect you. It's just a very small percentage of the people you should be representing.
Right. And we contrast that with our municipalities, right? Like Oklahoma City and the city of Tulsa. We've had, and all of our Oklahoma cities and towns use a single primary system with, which is nonpartisan. So everybody votes in for any candidate that they want, and the candidates are all listed on one ballot. So we hear a lot of support from mayors around the state of Oklahoma who are not concerned with having some kind of potential silo. They welcome the exchange of ideas. They welcome participation, and so I'm kind of curious if you can illustrate how that might have made it easier for you as a legislator. You know, you had to work in a partisan system, but had you not, what do you think might have gone differently?
Well, I don't even know if I would say, I would not say that that this type of election, an open election, makes it easier on elected. In fact, it probably actually makes it more difficult because you have to appeal to more folks, which requires a lot more effort. Right now, you can give lip service to the vast majority of your constituency because it doesn't matter. They're not responsible for keeping you in office. So I think from a results standpoint, I think we would see more effort be given to listen to more people if we change the system. And that's what happens in municipal government all across. And we, of course, Oklahoma City and Tulsa get most of the attention, but I've worked with cities and towns all across the state, and most of these mayors and members of city council are very responsive to all of their community because everyone can vote for them or not vote for them. So they have to listen to all of the people. And if you think about, contrast a local city council meeting when there is a very important referendum on the agenda and the community shows up to that meeting to spend their time voicing their opinion. Now contrast that to a state level. You can have a very important piece of legislation and a state senator might hear from one or two constituents on a good day because there's such a disconnect between that state senator and people. Wouldn't we be better off replicating that local community? And people show up at a city council meeting to talk about an agenda item that might not actually even vote. But you don't know that at the time. As a city council person, you're just responsible for answering to the public. And I think if we can get closer to that type of system with our state and county systems, we can improve government.
Yeah, so maybe at the state level, you would improve the satisfaction, the polling of satisfaction for state government is always so low, whereas local government is viewed more favorably, right? And then maybe you shift the conversation. That's the hope, I think, with what we're trying to do, shift the conversation to the issues that really matter to the people, right?
Right. And the closed primary, it isn't just about of course you have the candidate, but the entire system of campaigns is designed to appeal to a very small portion of the electorate. Even who gets mail, even who gets all of the mailers, you will have a candidate that spends thousands and thousands of dollars to mail to a very small portion of the electorate because that's who's going to go vote, which further disengages the rest of the electorate whenever we would benefit from opening that up, at least having all of the registered and active voters, with the goal of it becoming more interesting and more responsive so that even more people vote. So that by changing the system, we change the campaigns, which changes the way people govern, which also changes the way the people respond to their government.
Right. So you're a Republican, and I wanted to ask you if you could put your Republican hat on for a minute. We know that there are some people in the Republican Party who are opposed to State Question 836, which would replace our separate primary ballots with one unified primary. We would all be treated the same. and we would all get the same chance to vote for whoever, the one person that we like. So we know there's opposition from the party that happens to be in control today. We also know that Oklahoma history is that 30, 40 years ago, it was another party that was in charge. And so what we're kind of hoping for with this state question is some balance and representation of everyone in our system. Can you think of any reasons why a Republican, person, voter, or even candidate would like to have an open primary system when they have benefited from, they've obviously risen to power in the system that exists today?
Well, if you benefit from the current system, you want to protect that. But anyone of any political ilk, if you really deep down and say what actually is representative of our goals as a nation for government of the people, for the people, and by the people. The by the people part is really important, which is why the state question is important. But the of the people means all of the people, not just the small percentage. If I put my hardcore Republican hat on, it is very beneficial to only have to appeal to a small portion of the electorate. It's easier. It's much easier. The messaging that you have to, in a campaign, the messaging can be very small and narrow and tailored. You don't have to be vulnerable as a human being in the process. You don't have to be open to other people's ideas. You can just hunker down on these few easy concepts. It is challenging, and as an elected official, it might be a little frightening to think, how does this impact me and my ability to be reelected and keep this job that I want to do if I have to answer to everyone, including the people that I might not agree with? And in a polarized environment like we are right now, Margaret, it's much easier and more comfortable to run to your side and just try to protect your team instead of being open. But for me personally, my commitment to Oklahoma overshadows any personal political ambition I might have had. And what I think's best for the state is that all of our elected officials answer to all of us. And I've followed the Reagan doctrine. And as someone who agrees with me 80% of the time is my friend. And if I'm going for purity, I'm probably not going to find anybody. On the campaign trail, candidates are always notorious for saying, even my wife or my husband doesn't agree with me 100% of the time. We have to learn to live that, not just say that on the stump. We really need to embrace all views and all opinions and value every single Oklahoman equally.
Right. I think as a voter and a non-political person myself, we the people, are kind of tired of things not getting fixed. And we don't see a lot of forward motion in our state government. And we see a lot of easy things that we could be addressing. And at the same time, lots of things coming out of the state capitol that we don't know where they come from. Like, where did that come from when, like you said, we want great schools and roads and bridges and, infrastructure that makes sense. So, and tax policies that make sense. So, and a great economy. We want all those things. So I think we, the people, I think we're ready. And I think that the demographics and the changes in party registration are indicating that there is a large portion of us who, not me personally, but a large portion of people are registering independent. And we just feel like it's, probably makes sense to bring those people into the tent. And I'm hoping that Republicans will understand that when they look at their kids and their grandkids and they talk to them about the idea of an open primary and everybody having the same opportunities. I think that it is an Oklahoma value, right?
Almost certainly. And
yeah,
if you care about the future of the state, then listening to those that are the future are really important. And we have, when you look at the legislative process, sometimes we pass lots of legislation. Most of it is not necessarily very consequential. We haven't had any big reforms in quite some time. And a lot of that is the nature of where we are with when political polarization does not, and a process that supports that polarization does not lend itself to doing big things. And because that requires compromise. I served with, and when you said there was enough, the Democrats were in charge of the state 30 years, it was not quite 30 years ago. It was much, it hadn't happened. That's the flop hadn't happened. Has happened much more recently than that. But I served with members who had served when the Senate was tied. 48 members, and it was 24-24. And so all of the committees were co-chaired by a Democrat or Republican. And if there was a tiebreaker, you brought in the lieutenant governor for the tiebreaker. But they said it did not happen because it required that tie required so much negotiation around bills to be presented, to advance, to get out of committee, to get to the floor, that many of my former colleagues that served during that time say it was the most productive years that they had the opportunity to serve. In that 1-2 year stint when we had a tied chamber, we were really, really good at policy. Now, obviously, we're not going to, this isn't about unseating people of any party, but it's about increasing the opportunities to have that bipartisan negotiation, coming to consensus around big things that are good for everyone.
You know, we always say at Oklahoma United that we believe that people enter public service, they enter a race with their hearts in the right place. But the system itself is kind of corrupting that. It's not incentivizing anyone to continue with that altruistic mission. And so that's what we really want to see is people who get into it for the right reasons and they are able to serve and do their jobs, knowing that they have consensus and that they can run into someone at the gas station and they're not going to have to duck, you know, they're going to feel like they really have a connection with their own people. And that's what we really want for everyone. So I just wanted to end our little chat today with your views about what you're passionate about. We've talked about your work in early childhood, you know, improvements in Oklahoma, and what you think Oklahoma can do that's really important to make the state and our communities as good as they can be.
Well, I think every single Oklahoman is important and valuable. When I would serve, there was a community that every time I would go to this community, when I would leave, I would practically be in tears because I was so concerned for their future. And then I would look at the numbers and who was voting in that community, and very, very few were even engaged. And as I would try to be present in a community so that I could make an impact, the disconnect that I would see between my job to serve them and their feeling of access to an elected official. And I think, Margaret, that's one of the things that's important to me about being part of this movement is, yeah, we'll change things at the Capitol, but I'm probably even more concerned with changing things in the community and making everyone in the community feel and valued and empowered to ask for the things that are going to make their community better and stronger. At POTS, you know, we believe that resilient communities are home to strong families that raise thriving children. And so anything that empowers the community is like a core value for us. And access to elected officials, being included in the process, is key to that. It's vital. And I do believe, too, the other change that we'll see is that people will care as much about who they're electing county treasurer as instead of being forced to choose a party based on the top of the ticket, they can actually engage in every election all up and down the ticket. So we'll see just more engagement at the community level, which makes us all better.
Yeah, we always say we just so many great people in Oklahoma, and I think that they are dismissed a lot of times by the power brokers. I'm not even going to say people who run the parties. I don't even think there's no fault here, in my opinion. The system is what it is. It's producing what it is designed to produce. And hopefully with State Question 836, we're going to reorient the entire thing and put it on the people and make put the focus on the people and bring all of the best talent that we can to our big decisions and solve at least one problem and then move on to the next, right?
Yeah, we don't have a people problem. We have a process problem, and we need to fix the process.
Yeah, I love that. AJ, you are such a great ambassador for Open Primaries and the State Question 836. And I just can't thank you enough for visiting with me today. And we just are grateful for your expertise and your experience. And thank you so much.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Thanks, Margaret.